one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride-in on this Monday morning from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. A couple accidents to report, one at Charleston Highway and Pine Ridge Drive, another one at Killian Road and Wilson Boulevard, Old Tama and Kennerly as well, and then one more at Broad River Road and Lost Creek. Today, rounds of rain throughout the day, high of only 56. Tomorrow, pretty similar forecast with a high of 55, and just about the same on Wednesday with a high of 58. It's your traffic and weather, Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Nine o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here. Oh, man. It looked like the stars were aligning. It looked like magic wasn't going to happen once again. We talked a lot last week of, man, maybe, just maybe you can channel that magic and energy from 3 years ago when South Carolina upset Tennessee in 2022. Or perhaps maybe you can harken back to the 2010 team that was there being honored on Saturday. You wore big game garnet. The crowd was great. The atmosphere was electric. And Carolina played their best game of the entire year. Unfortunately, though, it was not enough as they did fall ultimately 29-22 to the number 4 Crimson Tide on Saturday.
You said it all right there, my man. I honestly thought for a second there when Lenore Sellers got in the end zone, that 10-yard touchdown run, I was like, "Oh shoot! All right, let me get my gamer ready for when South Carolina wins this game." And I thought Shane Beamer was going to be walking into the press conference proud as ever, probably taking forever to get to the press conference room after getting out of the field storming and whatnot. But that didn't happen. That did not happen. And we're sitting here again on Monday. Another sour reaction Monday just because South Carolina has now lost 5 of its last 6 games. But I think you could take more positives away from this game because South Carolina played a lot better. But at the end of the day, they did enough things in the end to ultimately come short.
Did you have a headline written for Carolina winning the game?
Well, here's the thing with me. So I don't write the traditional game story for this game.
Okay.
I write the premium story on Gamecock Central. So it's always the same headline, which is South Carolina - other opponent, which would be Alabama in this case, colon, the good and bad, key moments, what it means. And typically during this losing streak, people have not liked when I've put the good in the game because they're always like, "Oh, where's the good?"
Not a whole lot of good.
The good? There was only bad. I'm like, well, I mean, look, what do you want me to do? That's how the headline always is. But I was ready though in the body of my work. Like, okay, South Carolina's going to win this game, and then they go out there and do what they've done all year, which is just kind of crumble and lose.
That's why we don't hit submit or publish until the clock's hit 0. A lot to unpack from this one. Let's start off with some dose of positivity, though, and that is, as always, with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm. Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all night.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. And honestly, this matched the vibe. This was the energy of Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday. I think rightfully so going into the weekend we were concerned, like, all right, here comes an Alabama team in, number 4 in the country. Carolina came off playing their worst game of the year. How good is the environment going to be? I think it helped as well that you did have homecoming. You honored the 2010 team and all that kind of stuff. So the crowd was there, and they stayed the entire time. You had the energy. You had the atmosphere that you were looking for in Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday. I will say, as somebody that is very superstitious, when the students start coming down.
They do this every time.
And preparing to storm the field when you have not wrapped the game up yet, I always get concerned. Happened last year against LSU. Happened on Saturday against Alabama. Now, when you beat A&M last year, that was a rout, right? We knew with 7-8 minutes to go in that game, all right, Carolina's going to win this. There's going to be fans on the field. That's fine. When you know the game's well in hand, when you're still locked in a dogfight with one of the best teams in the country, don't start prematurely getting ready to storm the field yet. Wait until you know for sure. If that means you have to run down from the top at the very end of the game, then so be it. Do not tease a storm until you know for sure it's going to happen.
It's all those damn Northerners, man. It's the Long Islanders, it's the New Yorkers, it's the Ohioans, it's all those.
Well,
people.
Those are your people. You can speak to them better than anybody.
I know. I know. I'm a major hypocrite here, but it's true. It's true. They are not me, so I can call them out if I feel like it. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, do you not understand South Carolina football? Like, do you not know what comes time and time again? Did you not learn the lesson from the LSU game last year? Do not do that, because South Carolina, more times than not, is not able to deliver on what you're hoping for. That is just a fact of life and how it goes.
And especially with how things have gone this year, because this is not the first time you've been in position to win these games. You had a lead over Missouri in the fourth quarter. You were one score away, or only down one score in the late stages of the game against LSU. This team, you don't know what the final outcome is going to be until the game is truly over. And unfortunately, we learned that the hard way on Saturday once again. And look, we're going to dive into the specifics of all this as the show goes along. Carolina played its best game of the entire year, offense, defense, special teams, all that kind of stuff for the most part. Alabama didn't. You got the exact version of Alabama you were hoping for. Quite frankly, that looked like a team that was coming off of playing 4 straight ranked opponents, that was coming off of playing 2 tough road games in that time frame with Missouri and Georgia. Both games they won, obviously. Ty Simpson didn't play his best. He was missing throws. Ryan Williams was dropping passes. You know, there was errors on defense. Like, you got the exact version of Alabama you needed in this game. And unfortunately, it's a classic case of, I always love to use the phrase, you got to cut the head off the snake. When you have a team that's that vulnerable, you have to put them away. Because when you allow them to hang around, when you give them an inch in the fourth quarter, teams that good usually take advantage of it, which is exactly what Alabama did.
The most South Carolina loss you could have. We have said it many times. We thought many times this year, oh, this is the worst loss of the Beamer era. Oh, no, this one now is the worst loss of the Shane Beamer era. I haven't confidently said that about any of the previous games, Tyler. I don't think. And we've discussed it many times on this airwave. But I'm going to just outwardly say this is the worst loss of the Shane Beamer era. I just think they've blown a few fourth quarter leads just this season. That's twice now. But in the Beamer era, there have been some bad losses. Like Florida 2 years ago was rough. Ole Miss last year was terrible. But even Oklahoma last week was awful. But this one, man, you had them on the ropes. And like you just said, you laid it all out. They did everything they needed to do in order to get Alabama rattled, to make them make mistakes, play well defensively, put points on the board offensively, good drives. Like, if you told someone that did not watch this game, and you tell them exactly that stuff right there before it went bad, you're like, okay, South Carolina is going to win this game. What happens next? They kind of just do things that don't win you a football game, and that's the unfortunate part about it. You had this game, and you let it get out of your hands.
I think, look, this is obviously, any loss is going to be a bad loss to some degree. I think this one qualifies differently, though, because this is more of the heartbreaking type of loss instead of the, like, oh, that was pathetic type of loss. Like last week against Oklahoma, was a pathetic loss, right? You did not play well just about any facet of the game. I mean, defense held you in it for the most part, but your offense was just so porous, and they could only score 7 points that it was just a poorly played game. This was more of the case of, like, you played really good, but you just couldn't close the game out. And again, unless you put yourself up multiple scores on a team like Alabama where, and this isn't just for the Kalen DeBoer era, this goes back to the Saban era as well, those teams always find a way. I think back to when Saban was dominating, right? Winning national championships, all that kind of stuff. Every single year, there'd be like one game where they play like a 7-point game against Arkansas, or they have to come back against a not great Mississippi State team. Like, it always happened. One game every single year, they kind of had that sleepy game where things didn't go right, but they always found a way to win. And I think because that Alabama team, which on Saturday was not indicative of how good they are, that team's capable of winning the national championship. And I think Saturday was their game of like, all right, we played again, our C-plus level game probably, but you found a way to win. You kept yourself going, still number 4 in the nation right now. All your goals in front of you, still undefeated in the conference, likely going to be playing for the conference championship coming up here in a little over a month's time. Like, that was their survival game, and they survived it.
They did. They, like, again, Alabama fans were definitely, they were definitely worried about that game. Like, coming into it, they were worried, and I think everyone here was like, oh, don't even worry about it. It'll be over by halftime. But, I mean, South Carolina gave Alabama almost everything it had. And I say almost just because you really should have closed this game out, Tyler. I'm going to say that over and over again. This show, probably the rest of the week, you let this game slip away. And when you look at the bigger picture of where you're at right now, at 3-5 on the year, and you know what you need to do now the rest of the year, you need to win 3 of the next 4 games to sniff a bowl game. And you let this one get away from you. No one was expecting you to win this game. At best, you wanted to just play better, but you got that. But you had it. You had this game, Tyler, and you could not seal it.
It was the most gettable of the 3 you had in a row against ranked opponents, because you got to go on the road to Ole Miss, you got to go on the road to A&M. Now, if one of those games was at home, maybe we'd feel a little bit differently, but winning at home is a lot easier than winning on the road. And again, Alabama gave you the version of themselves that you were hoping for, because they weren't having their best day. Their best players were not playing at the elite level that they played like for the last month. But again, if you don't put them away, if you allow them an inch if you allow the door to open up an inch in the late stages, they're going to knock it down and open it up all the way, which is what they did. And we'll get into the specifics of the end of the game in a moment. But, you know, the vibe of today is a lot different than the vibe of last week. Like, last Monday was a vibe of, like, I just felt disgusted because what I watched was very poor, ineffective football being played the 2 days prior against Oklahoma. This is just deflating because, again, and look, beating Alabama doesn't suddenly make you a playoff contender, doesn't suddenly, like, change everything about your season because you've had some bad performances, but it puts you in a better position to make a bowl game, which at this point, that is the ultimate goal you're trying to achieve is just win 6 games and get yourself to a bowl, which now seems a lot further away by losing this game. So it's just kind of like you had the high, you were almost there, and then you just get let down in the very end, which is what makes this such a tough day to come in here and talk about it. It
is South Carolina football in a nutshell. I have not been here all too long, but I did go here, so I have seen some pretty bad losses, even from the Muschamp years. But this is just who they are, what they do, and it's unfortunate. They didn't play bad on Saturday, but here's one thing I will say. Good teams always find a way to win the tough games like that. I would also like to say bad teams always find a way to lose those games. Mm-hmm. You know, South Carolina is not a bad team in my opinion, but they kind of are more in the category of what bad teams do to lose games, and that's the way it is. So I mean, they made the mistakes, couldn't make the plays when they needed to most in the fourth quarter, and Alabama did. And it's not a 3-quarter game. It is a 4-quarter battle to the end, and Alabama, give them a lot of credit. The 8-minute touchdown drive, getting the 2-point conversion, getting the strip fumble, and then going down and scoring. That's what won them this game.
We'll examine what exactly happened at the very end, as you alluded to right there, coming up on the other side. If you want to weigh in, give us a call, 803-404-6100. Hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line at the same number. It is the Extra Point. Tyra Head and Jack Belcher here on your Reaction Monday on the game.
Out of 16's hands unless you're real sure. 2 tight end set. 3rd down and 1. The ball on the 10-yard line. It is Lenore's left side. 5, 4. Touchdown, Carolina. Touchdown. Lenore's Sellers from 10 yards out. You got yourself a star. Give him the football. The extra point could make it 22-14. Carolina with 10 minutes to go in the 4th quarter.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. That was the call late in the game, well, early in the 4th quarter at least, where Lenora Sellers scrambled to the left and got a touchdown, giving South Carolina the 22-14 lead for South Carolina. And at that point in time, it seemed like it was meant to be, right? It seemed like at that point, Carolina was going to go on and maybe pull off the upset that we are all hoping they could do, but maybe didn't have the most confidence they were going to be able to have or be able to do going into the weekend. And that was kind of a drive of destiny, right? Because you had the drive stall on your own side of the field. You had the muffed punt, which essentially acted as a long pass at that point in time, which gave you a second opportunity. Matthew Fuller had the extra effort on that 3rd down to get yourself another first down opportunity and continue to move the chains, and then Sellers caps it off with the touchdown run. Like, it kind of seemed like at that point in time, maybe this was all going to come together. Unfortunately, we know it didn't.
Yeah, that's the most, for the fans out there, it's the most painful part, in that I think a lot of them are just so used to it, in that, you know, they're still hurt over and over again by it. Don't get me wrong. The sting is no less because it's the latest in the line of many games like this. But as I said I was gonna do. You know, it's one that got away. It's the simple way to put it. One that they should have won, and it's not like it was the ref's fault in this game necessarily. Well, do take that back. There is one play with the holding on Tree Babalade that Shane Beamer was not too happy about. Did you hear his specific response to this on Saturday?
I didn't.
Now, he kind of said, I don't know if we have the audio clip, but he said it was one of the greatest flops he's ever seen, like an NBA player in the lane. That was thought that was kind of funny. So
yeah, and look, as a defensive player, that's what you're supposed to do, to try and draw the flag. So I mean, credit to them for being convincing enough to warrant the flag being thrown. And look, that was not the specific reason why you lost the game. That was a big moment, and that could have obviously changed things as the game went along. But there's a lot of other missed opportunities throughout this game that South Carolina had. But you go up by 8 points at that point in time, 22-14. And look, your defense had been playing lights out. They had shut out Alabama on the 3 prior drives with 3 consecutive 3-and-outs. They were playing their absolute best. But again, teams like Alabama always find a way to put it together at the end of the game. And they go on their best drive of the entire day, 14 plays, 79 yards. They get the touchdown to tie it up. Now, here is where you get the ball back. Here is your opportunity to go down there with roughly, 2 minutes left to go, and go down there and take it, kick, field goal, score, touchdown, whatever it may be. And unfortunately, football God's not smiling on you anymore. That is when Lenore Sellers fumbles.
Yeah, that's become a hot topic point of that game, in that your star player, getting paid a lot of money to quarterback this team, fumbles in a critical moment. Now, I don't think money has anything to do with it in this case, but I will just say this. It's unfortunate that it happened in this situation, and it's the same thing that happened in the Alabama game last year, where Sellers had a few critical fumbles in that game that helped South Carolina lose the game. It's one of those things where he mostly did everything right. It was a QB draw up the middle, which some people are going to criticize the play calling on that. I have no issues with the play calling from the game, Tyler. I don't know about you, but I think Mike Shula, they simplified the offense to call, as Shane put it, the 10 best plays, get the ball to the best players, and leave it at that. And that was a strategy I think they kind of had in that Tennessee game, and it worked out really well. Offense wasn't amazing, but they were much better than what they've been. Point is, play calling wasn't the issue in this game, I don't think. it's just one of those things where Sellers had both hands on the ball. He knew they were going to try to strip it out. He takes one hand off the ball. Deontay Lawson, a really good defender, comes in, knocks the ball free. And it's just, that's one mistake that was made by Sellers, and an otherwise really good day.
It was a good effort play by Deontay Lawson, too, by the way. Like, Sellers was in the process of going to the ground. He's already tackled, already stopped. It was a 2nd and 4 play, and he was getting stopped short of the sticks. And Deontay Lawson, who wasn't really involved in the tackle, just kind of goes in there and rips the ball out, as you're taught to do as a defender. And that ended up obviously being a critical moment for Alabama. And then the controversy really came because Alabama has the ball in plus territory. They end up in a 3rd and 10 situation. Jeremy Bernard gets the ball. He gets past the sticks, and then DQ Smith allows him into the end zone, puts his hands up as Jeremy Bernard is squirting the sidelines. South Carolina had no more timeouts at this point in time, and that is a major talking point that everybody wants to discuss. Let's hear what Coach Beamer had to say after the game about letting the Tide score.
If he got the first down. Same scenario as last year. Like, if you look back at the game last year, they really shouldn't have scored the touchdown. If you remember that play, they scored on 4th down. We busted the coverage. Like, the only reason that we had a drive to throw to Nick and a onside kick was because they scored and gave us the ball back. So what we said, I wanted them to kick us. Well, I used my timeouts. I wanted them to kick a 40-something yard field goal. But we said if they get the first down, we need to let them score, because otherwise they're just going to run the clock down and basically kick an extra point to win the game.
And I understand people's sentiment of, well, why wouldn't you just take your chance, try and block the kick? Once Jeremy Bernard had gotten past the first down point, he was basically inside the 10-yard line when DQ Smith was in the vicinity to be able to tackle him. Carolina had no timeouts. Alabama would have just been able to position themselves to kick a very makeable field goal with no time left on the clock. What you're doing there is you're allowing your best player, 16, to get the ball back one more time. Yeah, back would have been up against the wall. Yeah, it's a long way to go with only 30-some-odd seconds to go. Didn't help that Harbor only got the ball out to the 9-yard line, but I don't have a problem letting them score because I understand what you're trying to do by saying, hey, I'd rather be aggressive offensively with the ball in our hands, going down there trying to win, than having to hope for a low percentage block on a very makeable field goal.
What do we think? Do we think that was – you kind of brought up the fact that it was, Bernard was already got the first down, was inside the 10. I mean, the smart play for Alabama, I think, in that situation probably would have been to just go out of bounds and then kick the chip shot field goal. But I understand Shane's reasoning for what he did. However, he did the offense no favors by calling all the timeouts, and then you only have, I believe at the time it was like 29 seconds left on the game clock, and you have to go 91 yards down the field. Because keep in mind, on the ensuing kickoff, Nick Harbor tried to take it back, but then he got tackled inside the 10. So you're leaving your offense in a lose-lose spot, and they have to go down and score a touchdown. It's not like they go down and score a field goal. They got to go down there and get in the end zone.
Yeah, again, I understand the reason behind it, and your hope is that you have a better return on that kickoff. Hey, if he gets it out to the 20 or 25-yard line, then suddenly you have a shorter field to go. But, yeah, when he only got it out to the 9-yard line, that was a lot tougher of a challenge. And we'll get into the specifics of the offense in a moment. I will say I didn't love the fact that on your first play there, you have a throw short of the sticks to Brady Hunt, who gets tackled in bounds, which means the clock's running. So basically you're wasting about 10 seconds trying to get up there. You did have, and I get it, Sellers isn't looking at him, but you did have Oscar Attaway open over the middle where he could have easily gotten a first down. That would have saved you about 10 seconds so you can clock the ball. Then you're about the 23, 24-yard line probably, and you make it a lot more of a serviceable opportunity to go down the field and make something else happen, as opposed to once Brady Hunt got tackled in bounds, you ran off 10 seconds, and Sellers gets sacked, the game's over. So that moment at the very end, I didn't love the options that Sellers had there.
It's like they just didn't have a great plan in that moment to run it. And that's why I think people more so feel like take your chances with the field goal. If they beat you on a field goal at the last second, okay. But you're just putting yourself in such a tougher situation having to drive so far down the field, especially when South Carolina is known for special teams, right? They can go out there, block field goals, make tough plays. You're at home, too. So
Yeah.
I would have liked to see them take their chances, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, again, that would have been a very makeable field goal from that range as opposed to trying to make a 45-yarder or something like that. So I get where Beamer's coming from. Unfortunately, when you lose the game, all that stuff is obviously subject to scrutiny. We'll get into the offense more specifically coming up on the other side because, well, it looked a heck of a lot better, and also get to some of your calls, too, as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Tyler right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. So the month of October is almost over, but the best week of the entire month is here. Halloween coming up on Friday night, and spooky season reaches its peak this week with the annual Twin Peaks Halloween costume party. You can score king-size specials all week and block your calendar for a sweet treat with the Twin Peaks girls as they serve you in their most scandalous costumes. And while this week's going on, you also have things like the World Series. Game 3 coming up tonight. You'll have Monday Night Football as well. NBA back in action. Hockey taking place. Of course, more college football coming up as the week goes along as well. And the only place to take in all this great action is with our friends over at Twin Peaks. One right down the street from us here in Columbia, over in the Vista. Go hang out at Twin Peaks, your ultimate sports destination. All right, welcome back in. Extra Point. Siderhead, Jack Beltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the game. Tonight, by the way, Monday Night Football, Commanders at the Chiefs. You can listen to it right here on the game. Coverage beginning at 7:30. It is a Reaction Monday as we break down South Carolina's 29-22 loss to the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. Want some of your reactions as we head out to the AAA Heating and Air phone line. Scott has been holding on for a bit. Scott, appreciate your call. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, the series of downs where Sellers fumbled the ball, we ran a play before that. We got no yards. Then we try to run Sellers up the middle. My whole point is I think there ought to be a rule of somebody going down, they're 6 inches from the ground, and you come in there and pry the ball out. But I guess that's football, but I don't think that's right. But my whole point is, and Carolina has a tradition of this, when we took the lead and subsequently Alabama tied the game, we got real conservative. Alabama did the opposite. Alabama got aggressive. That was the difference in the ball game. We got real conservative, they got aggressive, and they took the game away from Carolina. Why we were running Sellers up the middle when we needed to get in field goal range, and we didn't make no yards on the first play. We didn't make no yards there, and then we ended up fumbling the ball. We should have been trying to get in field goal position. We were probably going to run out of time before we got in field goal position because they were being real conservative. And a winning team, a team with a tradition, is going to get aggressive. And if you try to protect the lead and don't step, we didn't get the lead by being conservative. We got the lead by being aggressive, and then we turned conservative. And Alabama took the game from us. They got aggressive and took the game from us.
Appreciate the call there, Scott. Again, 803-404-6400. And I understand the frustration. And watching the way the end of the game went down, I knew that those play calls were going to be subject to some scrutiny there at the very end. And going back to one of the first points that he made there in reference to the fumble, unfortunately, the rule is if your knee's not down, you're still a live ball carrier. And at that point, you do have to give some credit to Deontay Lawson for being heads up and being able to go and then rip the ball out. That's just a smart football play. And unfortunately, Sellers was not able to hang on to the ball. But when Alabama ties it and Carolina gets the ball back, which is right around the 2-minute warning, they do run the first play up the middle, and you get basically nothing. I think like a yard with Matthew Fuller. And then you might forget this, they had a free play after that. So Alabama guy jumps off sides. Sellers takes a shot. I think it was to Brady Hunt down the field. Incomplete pass, but still, you got 5 yards out of it, which set you up with a 2nd and 4 with about 1:50 to go. Clock was stopped. Carolina still had 2 timeouts. You're in a 2nd and short at that point in time. I don't hate the play call as far as running Sellers, and he got about maybe 2-ish yards out of it before the ball got popped out. So you were setting yourself up, if nothing else, for a 3rd and short. You could have potentially used a timeout there to stop the clock. So you still you were still in a position where you were on the field with 2 timeouts. You kind of had your entire playbook at your disposal at that point in time. I don't think it was a must, okay, we got to start taking shots down the field type situation. I don't hate the play call there. Obviously, it didn't end up working out for Carolina, but it wasn't like egregiously bad. You know what I mean?
I kind of disagree with what he said about the being conservative, because let's backtrack. Carolina scores the touchdown, right? Lenore Sellers runs into the end zone.
Yep.
8-point game. Alabama takes up nearly 8 minutes off the clock, because I think their drive started with 10 minutes left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. They get it all the way down to just about the 2-minute warning, get in the end zone, touchdown, and they get the 2-point conversion. So, I mean, at that point, it's like you're trying to make sure Alabama has no time left to do anything. So you could say that might be a little bit conservative, but I agree with you. I don't hate the play call on 2nd and 4. Lenoris was running good all game long, so why not run him on a 2nd and 4 and try to get the first down? It's just the blocking, for the most part, the blocking actually was pretty good in this game. But in that sequence right there, just ran into a little bit of a wall, and Alabama was able to knock the ball free That's just the way football goes sometimes.
Yeah, so at that point in time, you're on your own 36-yard line, 2nd and 4. So you know you got 2 plays at that point in time. You try and run it up the middle. Again, you could potentially use a timeout, but you're only still about 20-ish, 30-ish yards away from field goal range with still over a minute and a half left to go. Like, you still had plenty of time to do everything that you wanted to do at that point in time. So I don't, and again, we'll get into the specifics of the offense here coming up in a minute. Like, I thought it was the best called game Shula had the entire year. And again, in the moment when I saw it happen, I was critical of that. But going back and examining a little bit deeper, I'm like, okay, I'm not as mad about that. I get what you're trying to accomplish. And I think had you not fumbled, you still would have had plenty of opportunities to move the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So, and I agree with you what you said before. Like, you don't need to take deep shots on the early parts of that drive you were trying to put together. Again, the ball is in your court, quite literally, to go down the field, kick a field goal, and you win that game, and there's no time left. I mean, that's what South Carolina needed to do in that situation. Did it happen? No, it didn't. But I don't think that the play calling was necessarily terrible in that situation. It's just bad luck in a lot of cases there, just with the fact that Sellers takes one hand off the ball and Alabama's able to knock it free.
Yeah, and I will say on the final drive where the clock ended up running out, I didn't like the fact that you even had the option for a throw short of the sticks when you had no timeouts. Like, I get it, Hunt was trying to get out of bounds, but if nothing else, that those routes, and this is something we talked about with the Oklahoma game last week when time ran out for the half, those routes need to be past the sticks. So at the very least, even if you don't get out of bounds, the clock does stop. So you have the opportunity to clock it and save yourself, anywhere between 8 to 10 seconds. So that is one area of the play calling that I will be critical of with Mike Shula, is I didn't like that call on the very last drive of the game.
No, I agree with you on that. For the most part, I think Shula called a pretty good game, and I think some people recognize that. Like, how about the job he did calling the deep shot after the fumble on Alabama? Great play call.
That's from the Spurrier book right there.
Yeah, on the 54-yard touchdown to Nick Harbor from Sellers. I mean, talk about a good play call there. Even some of the play calls on the 2 long 14, 15-play drives in the first half that ended with field goals, Carolina did. I mean, those were 7-minute drives, Tyler.
Yep.
They ended with field goals, which isn't great, but I mean, that was promising. Like, stuff like that you can take away as a positive. Letting Lenore's kind of cut loose a little bit. I mean, that was the most he looked like the quarterback that we all know as he played like a first-round draft pick quarterback on Saturday.
That was the Sellers who've been waiting for this entire year. It wasn't perfect. He had some bad throws in that game, but that was the best version of 16 we've seen in 2025.
No, for sure. And the one play we haven't even talked about yet. I think maybe we should get into it maybe in a little bit of the next segment, but the phase on with with drop that pass. That was I mean that we talk about mistakes in this game.
Sure.
That's probably one of the biggest ones.
We'll get into that. Also get to more of your calls on the other side. So if you're sitting on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, hang tight. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on the game. All right, welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, along with you here on your reaction Monday, breaking down Carolina's heartbreaking loss 29-22 to Alabama on Saturday. More of your calls now. Ray's been waiting for a while on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Ray, appreciate the call as always. What's on your mind today, man?
Hey, good Monday, rainy morning to you, Jack and Tyler. I tell you, everything was there, man. The production, the crowd, the students, even the guy or the lady playing the music finally got it right. I mean, honest to God, I heard classic rock, and I almost came out of my seat, you know. I understand the rap and the hip-hop because that's the young kids. They like it. I kind of like it. But, damn, it was good to hear an AC/DC song and some of the other songs. But anyway, it was all sitting there, man, and I'm just going to get to the parts of it. Yeah, when we had that muff catch and they returned it for the touchdown there, you know, I said right then, man, I don't care how this game ends. This is going to be the difference in the game right here. You can't, you know, against a great program like that, you made that kind of mistake, and I guarantee you're going to pay for it in the end. But anyway, yes, the offense play call was much better. It's kind of what you expected all year long. It almost looked like the guy from Appalachian State, you know, said, you know, I'm gonna be the OC for Carolina this week, you know, because that's how we look like, you know. But so I give Shula some credit there. I still think on first downs we need to have a better intermediate passing game. This running up the middle, and you know the last series where Sellers fumbled. I thought the first play was a little bad. I thought it's when you hit for your 7 to 8 yard pass play there, you know, and get it going that way. But in the end, you know, we just didn't make enough plays. We left a lot of points on the board. And going back to the thing we're kind of talking about, the last play where we let the guy score, I was okay with that. But when you do that, knowing you have no timeouts in 34 seconds, you cannot return that kickoff. You just let it go in the end zone. You take it at 25. No time's come off the clock. You know, your first completion is probably going to be around the 45. You know, you get there, you spike it. You still got probably 25 seconds maybe because you get a first down. You probably have about 28 seconds. You throw for about 10 more yards. You know, the guy gets out of bounds. You know, you got 18 seconds, 17 seconds, and you're where you can reach the end zone. Had they done that, I'd have been okay with it. But when you return the kick, I was like, no, if that was your strategy, that was not a good strategy in my opinion because it just wasn't going to be enough time left. You return the kick, and even if you get to the 30, you gain 5 yards, but you lose 6 to 8 seconds. So I think that definitely deserves a little critique in there. But overall, you know, it's a shame we didn't win that game. You know, Shula had his best play calling, no doubt. The defense played great. I hate to criticize the defense because they played so great. But when they scored a touchdown, Tyler, when Bama scored a touchdown, was there no doubt in your mind they were going to get that 2-point conversion?
And I didn't doubt it, and they pulled out one of the most impressive 2-point plays I've ever seen.
Great play call.
That was their first attempt of the year, and they've been sitting on that one for a while, you could tell.
Oh, yeah, but the one thing I will say, and I give them credit, but, man, that was the one time we picked to only send 4 guys, and I was like, no, send somebody else. They're going to pass, golly. But anyway, hopefully we learn, we do better. But ending up, guys, and nobody's talked about this yet, that's the most sobering Shane Beamer I've ever heard in that press conference. I mean, it was like you could tell his heart had just been crushed. And I mean, it was. I was thinking, my goodness, this is a deep loss because you know the season's going really bad, and we got some juggernauts left. And had we won that game, the story we could have told, and it was just. I felt bad for Shane during that press conference. But that's all I got to say, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call there as always, Ray. 803-404-6100. Hair, we'll get to you coming up here in just a few minutes. Don't worry, keep hanging on there. Again, when you lose a game, everything's subject to scrutiny. You brought up a play just a moment ago, Jack, the pick 6 at the beginning of the game. Carolina up 3-0 at that point in time. Defense gets another stop. You get the ball about halfway through the first quarter, and what is just kind of a dump-off screen type of pass to Rasul Faison. Hits him right in the numbers, bounces right out of his hands into the defender's hands for Alabama. And before most people could even blink, Alabama suddenly up 7-3 on that play. And at that point in time, I thought everything was going to go off the rails. I thought at that point, that's where the game was going to go sideways. And again, credit to the entire team for not letting that moment get the best of them. But that definitely, in the grand scheme of things, ended up being a huge play.
Like, you had the momentum early on in this game. You went down the field in 15 plays and kicked a field goal, which is fine. Like, you got your points. But then you get the 3-and-out on defense. Like, that was also, like, the Brian Thomas sack there, that effort, that's what you need in that type of game. And then on the first play of the next drive for South Carolina, Lenore Sellers did everything right on that play. He got pressure in his face, checked down to his running back, right there. The ball is in Rasul Faison's hands. Again, you waited 8.5 months for this guy to be cleared. And I know he's done some good things this year, but he also has not been amazing. He's not been what you signed up for completely. And for him to drop that ball, I know it's a mistake, but it was a big one. And Shane Beamer told him, during that moment that, hey, like 7 points isn't going to win this game, but it certainly did lose you the game.
Yeah.
So, we can criticize. I'm not going to criticize the defense for this game.
Sure.
I know what happened in the fourth quarter. It was not great, but Alabama is also a really good football team. You can't make those types of mistakes against a team like that. You got to let Alabama make more mistakes, which they did. But those little mistakes, especially on that pick six, will kill you.
Yeah, I thought it felt like Carolina should have been leading at halftime, but they were down 14-6 at that point in time. And a play like that is a big reason why, because it's just a mistake on one player on offense and ended up turning the tide, no pun intended, 7 points the other way. And we'll get more to the offense specifically here in a moment, because Coach Beamer let it be known after the game what he told Mike Shula this week heading in about what changes needed to be made on offense. We'll dive into that coming up next. Also get to Harold on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as well in just a moment as the Extra Point Reaction Monday edition rolls on here on the game. All right, here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. If you looked outside this morning, you can tell it's raining for the first time in a while in the Midlands, and rain means if you have an open cross space under your home, you might end up with some standing water under there, which I don't have to remind you, that's not good. It can lead to a list of complications with your home, including things like wood rot, and floor joist problems. Can also invite mold and mildew into your crawl space that can even affect the air that you and your family breathe in your home, because about half the air in your home comes via your crawl space. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycomdixon.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycomdixon.com. Let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists help you out with your foundation and crawl space issues. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Breaking down South Carolina's 29-22 loss to the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide, unfortunately dropping the Gamecocks to 3-5 on the season. And of course, they need to get to 6 wins to get themselves to a bowl game, which would mean, unfortunately, having to find a way to navigate a tough stretch in the next 2 weeks and win one of the next 2 games against Ole Miss and A&M to keep yourself alive in that regard, which is going to be a tough task. Though, this past weekend, the offense did look a whole lot better. And one of the reasons for that may have been a little bit of a come-to-Jesus meeting between Shane Beamer and Mike Shula. As he explained after the game, he told Mike Shula what needed to be done about the offense heading into the game.
We talked about just that we needed to, it's easy to say simplify, but we were probably less volume in the game plan today just because I told Mike and the offensive coaches, we ain't going to out-scheme Alabama. Let's get whatever our best freaking stuff is schematically, and let's get it in the game plan and figure out who our best players are and just feature our best plays and our best players over and over and over again. And I don't care if we have 10 plays in the game plan, just run those 10 over and over again. So we tried to really dial in, and we do that every week. So it's not, Shane took till game 8 to figure that out. No, we do that every week or 7, whatever today was. But really just kind of trying to condense on what we're doing. We wanted to be able to, spread them out a little bit more with a few more open sets, whether it be empty or, 2x2 open, 4 wides, whatever you want to call it, just to kind of spread them out and bring less people into the box for our offensive line and tight ends to have to block. We wanted to be able to, run him. We threw a couple wrinkles in there with just some formations and run schemes. And then we wanted to, I told Mike earlier in the week, look, if we drop back 25 or if we throw 25 passes today, it doesn't need to be 20 just sit in the pocket and drop back. We need to be able to move the pocket. We need to throw screens. We need to be able to get the ball out of his hands quickly, that we got playmakers at the receiver position and tight end position and running back. And we need to be able to, sit in the pocket and throw the ball downfield at times. But we also got to be able to just get the ball out of his hands quick and get them in space and make people have to, deal with us.
And Shula clearly took that conversation to heart, and as critical as we've been over the offense, and rightfully so, that was their best performance all day long Saturday. They were able to move the ball up and down the field. Yep, certainly some opportunities they wish they could have cashed in on a little bit better, but still from a play-calling standpoint, was the best game they had. Like you said, moved the pocket, did some horizontal motion type of stuff, got the ball in Sellers' hands more. The O-line played a better game. It was all around the offensive performance we've been waiting for this entire year. Unfortunately, it took 8 games to get there.
It did. I mean, that's the thing. And I'm glad they made changes in some respects. Now, they're not going to change the play caller at this point in the season. They made their change 2 weeks ago when they got rid of Lonnie Teasley. And that's looked a lot better. Sean Elliott's done a pretty good job with this offensive line. Sacks were way down, and Lenore Sellers was able to really move around in the pocket and get some good throws off. But like you said, Tyler, they simplified things. Play calling was just a lot more consistent, and you got the ball in 16's hands more times than not, and look what it did. It led to a really good performance from him despite the one fumble at the end of the game.
It's funny. We drew so many comparisons going into the weekend to the Tennessee game from 3 years ago, and what happened before that Tennessee game? Shane Beamer sat down with Mark Satterfield and said, simplify the offense. Get rid of your Denny's menu, and let's get this down to a smaller sheet of paper. And what do you know? They scored 63 points on a team that was destined at that point in time for the college football playoff. Similar kind of situation here. As he said, we're not going to out-scheme Alabama. Let's simplify this. If we got 10 plays that work, let's run those 10 plays over and over and over and over and over again. And that's effectively what they did on Saturday. They made what was working last throughout the entire game.
And I think that's a recipe for success. And the difference between back then was what you said about Satterfield versus now is that, yes, you won that game against Tennessee, then you beat Clemson the week after, but you had 3 games left on the schedule when you started simplifying things. South Carolina's still got 4 games ahead of it to potentially look a lot better. And I know bowl opportunity is wearing real thin right now. You have to win 3 of your next 4 games, and guess what? 2 of those games come on the road against top 10 teams. But I have a lot more confidence in this team now to potentially go out here. I'm not saying they're going to win but to at least play better, knowing that the offense, if they can do this again, where they can, this should be the game plan the rest of the year, don't you think, where they are simplifying things, not making it overly complicated, running what works, and sticking far away from what doesn't. That has to be the key moving forward.
This should be your blueprint for what your entire game plan is for these final 4 games of the regular season, because, again, it worked. And, again, you moved the pocket. You got the ball out of Sellers' hands quickly. He threw almost 80% of his passes short of 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Like, they were getting the ball out quick, which is what you need to do because your pass rush has struggled this year. And they played better on Saturday, but there were still moments. I mean, let's go back to the pick 6 that, Faison kind of fumbled when he got it into his hands. Tree, I believe he was matched up with L.T. Overton on the right side there. L.T. Overton got around Tree, which kind of forced Sellers into making that snap throw. It was still a good throw, and it hit, Faison right in the numbers, still should have made the catch. But again, there were moments where Alabama was able to break through, but you were getting the ball out so quickly, it didn't have the same effect as these, other games where Sellers drops back, all of his receivers are on deeper routes, and he's sitting back there waiting for the opportunity to throw while the protection's breaking down. He's getting swallowed up and getting sacked.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it just felt different and I think it goes back to something Shane said a week earlier in that with the whole moving on from Teasley and having Elliott be the coach and stuff, one game was not going to really make a ton of difference. But now you see what happens with 2 weeks' time to get adjusted. I think the players are better adjusted to what Sean Elliott is like as a coach, what he expects of them. And I think you saw it on the field. As he pointed out, there were 2 sacks on the stat sheet, but he deliberately pointed out that one of them was not on the offensive line. One was on another player that missed an assignment. So, yeah, Sellers had more time to throw in this game. And even, he had clean pockets most of the afternoon. There are even times where it's like he's holding on to the ball too long. Get rid of it and throw it because you have time to throw, but you're not doing it. So I think overall that is a huge, huge difference in what this offense can and can't do. It's crazy what can happen when you have a clean pocket to throw and run out of.
And again, you turn the ball over on downs on defense against Alabama, and immediately, first play, you take a deep shot 54 yards to Nick Harbor. Again, a page straight out of Steve Spurrier's playbook. When you get a turnover or turnover on downs, take a shot. I loved it. That's the things we've been waiting to see this entire year. And again, I hope it's not a one-game anomaly where say, man, that Alabama game was fun, but they went back to being what they were against Ole Miss. If you can operate that same type of game plan, I still think your odds of winning the next 2 games are low, but you give yourself a better shot because you have an offense. By the way, credit, they've now scored 22 points, which beat the previous record of 21 points. Playing like that, you're going to give yourself a better chance.
I'm just saying, the offense does not need to, you'd like them to go out there and score 30, 40 points, but considering what this defense did, they're going to get a lot of heat for that fourth quarter, but this defense was nails for almost this entire game. So one drive that Alabama goes on and scores a touchdown does not change my opinion on how the defense played. They gave you a chance to win. Your offense also stepped up to the plate and actually did some good in this game. You get more, and your special teams made a play. So if you get that moving forward, clean up the little mistakes, like the 2 fumbles in this game that cost you, you have a chance, man. It's not like Oxford is the most hostile. It's not LSU. It's not Texas A&M. You can go in there and win. I know it's at night, but if you play like you did on Saturday, minus some of the mistakes, you have a fighter's chance, I think.
You absolutely do. Let's get more of your reactions now. AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Harold's been hanging on for a bit. Harold, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Thank you for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller. I'm a South Carolina State University grad, and I thank the university for playing us and helping us financially with that. I listen to you guys, and you do an excellent job. But about the game on Saturday, I was disappointed, but I just wanted to say a Monday morning quarterbacking, I guess. I think on their last drive, when Carolina had the ball to go for a field goal or a touchdown, I don't like that second. I'm not criticizing, but I thought that maybe we shouldn't run Sellers up the middle. I think we should roll him out to give him the option to throw or run. And I think that would have been a better call at the time. And I do believe we got too conservative on the end there. So I want to tell Shane Bieber, Carolina fans, he's a great coach. I love him. And based on his press conference being down, if he's listening, hold your head up and keep moving forward. I think he's going to keep Carolina in the mix this year to get to that bowl game and in the future. So be encouraged, Gamecocks. I think the best is yet to come. And again, thank you for taking my call. And you guys do a great job.
No, thank you. We certainly appreciate that, Harold. Again, 803-404-6100 if you want to give your thoughts here on your Reaction Monday. By the way, shout out to SC State for the 51-20 win over Norfolk State over the weekend. Big win there over Mike Vick's team.
Yeah, man.
You forgot that Mike Vick was coaching them.
Things are going bad out there at Norfolk State. Like he's had to, I don't know if you've seen, he's had to fire some coaches and make some changes. Does Virginia Tech even want him for their head coaching job?
I wouldn't even entertain that. Liz, this guy's first-time head coach. He's got a lot to learn before he ever takes on a job like that. I wouldn't even look in that direction as of right now. But going back to Harold's point, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, the decision to run Sellers on the 2nd and 4, again, in the moment, in the stadium when that happened, I was pretty critical of it. But going back and really breaking it down, you were just under the 2-minute timeout. You had 2 timeouts to work with. You had just had a free 5 yards where you took a shot down the field on the free play, didn't get it. So you were in 2nd and 4. You had 2 plays to get the first down there, obviously, because you would have 3rd down. Sellers got about 2 yards, so you were going to be setting up for about a 3rd and 2. Obviously, Deontay Lawson makes a great play and rips the ball out, and obviously the rest is history there. I didn't hate it because I still think you had your full complement of playbook there. Even if Sellers does get tackled short of the line to gain, like I think I understand where the criticism of conservatism there is, but I still think you would have been able to do what you needed to do even after that play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, there are other moments in this game too where you're going to be like, oh, well, what if this happened and what if that happened? Like, for instance, the 2-point conversion try with Jaden Sellers, like from Lenore's, like that play, it looked like it was there, Tyler. The ball just kind of went in, like, out of Sellers' hands. But I think there were moments like that where it's like the little things in this game really made a big difference. Like, we're going to talk about the phase-on fumble. We'll talk about, what happened at the end of the game with Lenore's fumbling. But there were other things in this game where it's like you avoid this or something goes your way here, the outcome's completely different.
Did you like going for 2 when they were down 14-12?
Trying to think. What point in the game was that?
That was 3rd quarter.
Yeah. And they didn't get it, right?
They didn't get it, so they're down 14-12. They kicked the field goal later.
Yeah.
That put them up 15-14.
Yeah,
but they were going for the tie in the 3rd quarter.
I don't mind it. I think you go for it there in that situation, and it was right after the Harbor touchdown, right? So I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm looking back at my notes here.
Yeah, but it was a good one. And then there was a little bit of criticism later on in the game after Sellers scored the touchdown to go up 8. Why not go for 2 in that situation
that was the one for me. I would have much rather gone for 2 than to try and make it a 2-score game.
That's the thing. I would have gone for 2 there. Just so look, you're the team that is kind of going to play spoiler here.
You got to be the aggressor in those situations.
You have to be aggressive in those spots.
Yeah, because again, if you miss it, you're still up 7, which means they tie with the field goal and an extra point. I'm more on that situation of not going for 2 as opposed to when they did go for 2 and didn't make it roughly, halfway through the 3rd quarter.
Like, take your chances there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into what Coach Beamer had to say about the defense and the great performance they had on Saturday. Coming up next as Reaction Monday rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry here on The Game. Oh, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher in your Reaction Monday here on the game. I was venting my frustration about what the Falcons did against the Dolphins yesterday to Elijah in the break. I had to apologize to Preston on behalf of our shared NFL team this year. Disgusting.
What the hell happened, man? I mean, what happened?
Atlanta happened. I want to give credit to my dad because I talked to him on Friday and we were talking about the game, and he says, "You know they're going to lose this game, right?" I was like, the Dolphins are pretty bad. He's like, "No, I've been a fan a long time." He's like, "This is the game that they lose," and lo and behold, he was right. They lost.
This is the Falcons, man. Hey, how about the Bills, man? I'm so mad I was not able to get to this game because of the men's basketball exhibition yesterday. And then also ticket prices were insane for the Bills game. But
shoot, you could have hopped on the flight with Brandon Bean on Saturday. He was at the game.
Shoot, I know he was. I don't think it was probably best for me not to say anything because keep in mind the Bills had lost 2 straight at that point. So I was not.
Well, you were his unpaid scout for the Clemson game last year. He could have been like, "Hey,
I was
helping you guys out."
I was the unpaid scout. I should have told him, "Hey, don't take that Cade Klubnik guy. Don't take."
Yeah. Well, hey, that would have been a good advice because now we see.
Yeah, but yeah, man. I mean, look, the Bills 40-9. I mean, that was thank you to the Panthers for waking up the Bills because that is what they needed.
See, James Cook 216 all-purpose yards. Did I get that correct?
That's my fantasy running back, man.
Oh my God, what a day!
Let him cook. He was so good yesterday. So
getting back into South Carolina and that loss. By the way, there was so many NFL scouts there on Saturday. You know, funny enough, when you play what is considered an NFL factory, a lot of NFL teams can have interest in those games. Weird how that works, right?
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And even a lot of bowl reps there, too. I mean, you got the Gator Bowl there. You have the Citrus Bowl.
I got a pin from the Cheez-It Bowl guy.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of bowl reps there, a lot of scouts there. And look, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Alabama's in town. Like, the Citrus Bowl is in town for Alabama. Like,
it is. Well, and that was the funny thing. I told this to Terry because I saw Citrus Bowl, I saw Gator Bowl there. I said, no offense to those guys, I don't think Alabama's going to be in those bowl games. I think they've got bigger fish to fry.
No, I think they're going to be playing for something a lot bigger down the stretch. But, yeah, I mean, this was a game with it also. How about how many recruits were there? I mean,
oh, my God.
I was down in the end zone area behind the hedges, and I usually go down there every single game because I typically post the behind-the-scenes vlog, which I still need to post from Saturday. But I go down there, get some film on what the players are doing before the game, and there were so many recruits there. Typically, they're on both sidelines, and it's from not just football, but softball, baseball, basketball, all the different sports. But, I mean, even in the end zone, I mean, you couldn't see anything. There were just recruits everywhere, easily the most they've had all year.
And that's, again, I want to give a lot of credit to the crowd on Saturday because you had every right to be apathetic going into that game. After what you saw last week, oh boy, here comes the top 5 team in the country, maybe the best team in the entire country with the way they're playing as of right now. Nobody would have blamed you if we would have been going through the motions as fans, but they brought the energy. You had the 2010 team out there doing as the honorary starters before the game. The energy was high, and again, with the way this team played for the majority of the game, it kept the energy, kept it going, and it really, again, I didn't like them all piling down to storm the field before the game was in hand, but like you could sense the belief in people as you got into the fourth quarter, especially when you took the lead with 10 minutes to go, like, oh, this can really happen. And the crowd played their part. You had the 12th man aspect of it. It clearly rattled Alabama. So if you were in Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday, shout out to you because you did your job.
Staying the whole game and then leading to a lot of traffic on the way back.
Oh, my God. It took forever to get out of there.
Dude, I didn't get out of that press box and get to my truck until probably, I want to say like 2.5 hours after the game ended. I still sat. I didn't get home for about an hour after that. I mean, it was crazy how much traffic there was.
Because we park at Jay's Corner because that's where we do our show at. It took me over 30 minutes to get out of their parking lot. And, like, there's not a lot of cars in that parking lot.
No, but it's like you're going on Olympia right there, right? I mean, I'm sure that was all backed up.
You know, it's really funny when it comes to traffic because when traffic's light, we're all very generous, right? All right, one car go, the other car go, one car go, the other car go. It turns into like Lord of the Flies, where everybody just fends for themselves and you pretend to not see cars trying to merge in front of you and you take spots that other people are trying to take. And, like, it just becomes like this free-for-all when you've been sitting there long enough.
Like, how does traffic – I've looked this up before, but I still don't even know the answer. Like, how does traffic start besides a crash? I mean, like –
just a lot of cars in a congested area, and especially because, again, where I have to leave, have to go through Olympia, you got red lights, and they have traffic control up there, but you got merging lanes. Like, it's just a lot of vehicles trying to fit into one space when there's not enough room for all of them, basically.
I mean, it was easily even the fair wasn't that bad. The fair I had so much more luck getting out of.
Well, at least with the fair game last week is most people had left before the game was over.
That's a good point.
Because, again, once Oklahoma went up by 10, most people are like, all right, this offense can't score 10 points. I'm going to go ahead and leave or go to the fair. So I think that helped. But, yeah, when you have the entire 80-plus thousand people stay till the very end, then it's like, okay, now they're all leaving at once.
Yeah, I mean, it was not like that at all on Saturday. It was much different. And, again, the fans, they did their part.
They did.
They did. I mean, they didn't have to show up for that game. And you could say maybe it was a lot of Alabama fans. There were a good bit there, but South Carolina showed up, and Shane even mentioned it after the game, as he always does. Really great crowd, a lot of recruits there, a lot of good things to take away from that game. It's just so unfortunate that you did not get the outcome you wanted, because things would be feeling much different right now. We would be talking about the season is still worth saving, and maybe it is right now, but it's not that same vibe that we would have had otherwise.
People can say what they want about the Carolina fan base. Nobody can deny their passion, right? This year is effectively a disappointment, if not a failure at this point, considering what your expectations were going into the year. But you had, again, if you stripped the resumes off the table, took the records off the scoreboard, and all that kind of stuff, you would have never known that those fans were cheering for a 3-4 team. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, totally. I mean, it would have been it's a tough year for South Carolina, no doubt about it. And look, there's a lot that's gone wrong this season. There's a lot of reasons to feel, apathetic, as that word has been thrown around a bit, frustrated, other things like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you're 3-5. No one's feeling happy about that, but there is more optimism, I think, coming away from that game. Nobody's as frustrated, I don't think, and pissed and disappointed after that type of game compared to other ones we've seen this year.
Well, in a classic case of at least we ain't in Baton Rouge right now, because, oh my, they had a miserable weekend, which culminated with Brian Kelly getting fired. We will dive into everything that happened on the Bayou coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry here on Your Reaction Monday on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing. No payments or interest for 12 months and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help you out. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today at 803-677-1500. Again, that is 803-677-1500. Tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game. Get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
That's out of my hands. It's impossible for the head coach that's been here, for 4 years and 35 years of doing this, to think anything else but this is my responsibility, and we've got to get it turned around. And that's not my decision in terms of whether I'm here or not, but that's what I will do as a head coach that's been doing it for over 3 decades. When things are not going well from a football standpoint, the head football coach has to be agile enough and able to make those changes.
Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. And, well, that was the voice of now former LSU head coach Brian Kelly after an embarrassing 49-25 defeat in their own stadium by the number 3 Texas A&M Aggies. And it wasn't just the fact that A&M beat them. A&M's a very good team. Again, undefeated, 8-0, 5-0 in the SEC, number 3 in the country. It's the fact that they dog-walked LSU in Death Valley. Brian Kelly had lost 1 game at home at Death Valley in his time so far at LSU, that being the Alabama game a year ago. And they just got flat out embarrassed. They got out physical. Funny enough, the strength coach that Brian Kelly fired when he got to LSU, Timothy Moffitt, is now the strength coach at Texas A&M. So I think there was a little bit of a personal vendetta about that one going into the game. But they slaughtered them, mainly in the second half of that game, but still throughout the entire game, and got to the point where LSU said, this isn't sustainable. We have to make a move.
Did you hear that one note on Timothy Moffitt? Did you hear what he did with the practice dummies during the week? He had put Brian Kelly's face on the dummies. Like,
I love it.
I love that energy because, look, he was part of all 3 national championships that LSU had won in this century under Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. And I think he was very, very upset about the fact that Brian Kelly was not going to bring him back when he was hired initially. So some revenge for Moffitt. But, yeah, I mean, look, it kind of felt like it was coming because they lost to Vanderbilt on the road. They then went out and obviously lost to Ole Miss right before that, and then this game. I mean, and they had a 10-point win over a Florida team where DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions, and a 10-point win over a relatively bad South Carolina team. So, I mean, this has just not been a good season for LSU, especially with all the expectations they had coming in. Nussmeier returning, a lot of good pieces on this team. Probably the best talent-wise team that he's had in his 4 years at LSU. And the thing is, I just don't feel like there was a great tweet from Peter Burns of SEC Network yesterday. I think I have it pulled up right here. It's a great tweet. It always felt that Saban loved LSU.
Yep.
It mostly felt that Miles loved LSU. It always felt Coach O loved LSU. It always felt like Brian Kelly liked being LSU's coach. I mean, that's a perfect way to sum up how this whole thing went. It just never felt – it was the big-time hire for LSU. But you got to look at Brian Kelly's background. He's an Irish Catholic. He's from Boston. I mean, nothing about him screams Deep South, Cajun, with that fake howdy y'all type of accent that he had. My family and I are glad to be here at LSU. Like, come on, man. Like, that should have been an early sign right from the beginning. Him dancing with that recruit. Oh, my gosh. I mean, there were signs early on that this thing was doomed from the start.
Hindsight, of course, is always 20/20 when you're talking about these things and looking at the warning signs of how this could have gone sideways. Rodney Nabolsi, who covers the Georgia Bulldogs for what sites he with now. He's at UGAsports.com. I think he put it best in a tweet that put out today. He said, this guy was arrogant. That's why he didn't fit in. Thought he could come to the South and win over the slow-talking, ignorant yokels with a fake accent. He figured his genius was wasted in Notre Dame, so he'd come show us rednecks how a real coach does things. And, again, he's being funny when he says that, but I think there's a lot of truth baked into that. And I thought Josh Pate made a really good point last night when he was breaking this down on his show. It was happening live as he was doing his show. He said in a roundabout way that Brian Kelly never embraced the Louisiana part of LSU.
No.
And look, we talked about it here locally with South Carolina. Columbia is ingrained in the University of South Carolina. If you're going to be a coach here and you're going to last and you want people to be on your side, you have to embrace the community aspect of being in Columbia. Shane Beamer does a great job with that. Shane Beamer is out in the community. He goes to all the other sporting events. You feel like he genuinely cares and he genuinely wants to be here. Same thing with Dawn Staley. And again, Dawn Staley's got the success. She doesn't, even if she wasn't embracing the community, she'd still be fine because she's obviously winning at an insanely high level, but still, she's out there. She was at the football game on Saturday. She's out there in the community. She embraces being in Columbia. That's something that we were critical of Mark Kingston for, because he was just here to coach baseball, which, okay, that's fine, but that's not going to buy you a long leash when it comes to this fan base. And I think it's similar to LSU, where Brian Kelly, Terry used the word when I was talking to him this morning, was kind of hired as a mercenary, right? It's like, all right, we think you're a great coach, which, hey, he's a really good coach. Not a great person, but a really good coach. We'll give you the resources, come in here and give us a national championship. And look, they still won a lot. He was averaging 9 wins a year. They went to the SEC championship game in his first year. He had a Heisman Trophy winner in his second year, but it wasn't enough. And the fact that he rubbed so many people the wrong way in Louisiana. By the way, the governor of the state of Louisiana was one of the primary decision makers on firing him yesterday because they don't have a president, and the governor appoints most of the board members at LSU. So he quite literally was one of the biggest forces in firing him yesterday because he tweeted on Saturday night, hey, you can't raise ticket prices if you're going to play football like this, which he's right. You shouldn't do that. So the entire state was against Brian Kelly by the time clock hit zeros on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, you had fire Kelly chants happening throughout that game, especially at the end when you could just hear it audibly on the TV while watching the game on ABC, and you just hear the fire Kelly. Like, you could hear it the entire time. And it's when you have that fan base go against you, again, they are as passionate as you will see in college athletics. It's not just baseball that they are passionate about. Football, they live and die with that stuff just as much as South Carolina does, in my opinion. And when you got those guys against you, that ravaging fan base that can be so dang loud at Tiger Stadium, it's hard to win them back, and it's hard to feel like you have the support. I mean, Brian Kelly was just a dead man walking at that point, and to get embarrassed, I mean, the sounds of that place when you see the chants and then you see A&M take over that place.
Yeah.
A place that's always been, what is it Les Miles said years ago? Tiger Stadium is where dreams come to die.
Yeah.
I mean, road teams are going in there and playing well against LSU. That's a problem.
It absolutely is. And watching the game on Saturday night, I was sitting in traffic. I was actually able to watch some of it and listen to it on the way home. It was, and I think ESPN did a really good job of making sure they put the camera on Kelly after every positive play for Texas A&M, because after every single play, he is just screaming and dressing down his assistants, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. By the way, Joe Sloan was also fired about an hour ago, the OC, where it almost kind of like seemed like Kelly was positioning himself to be able to say, hey, I'm doing my best, but these guys are screwing up and I can't have success with them. And from the reports, I believe he thought going into Sunday he was going to be able to scapegoat his coordinator, say, all right, let's fire all these guys, and I'll try and figure out something new. And they're like, no, bud, we want you gone. We'll fire those guys too, but you got to go as well.
Yeah.
So I think Brian Kelly misread the room on that one.
Yeah, well, apparently the discussion, like you said, Tyler, as you're alluding to, was that he needed to fire the OC and BK, apparently, according to what I read out there with people that covered this team with LSU and their sources, he wasn't going to fire the OC, Joe Sloan. So then he's like, okay, well, I'll fire the offensive line coach, but they weren't having it. And then I think BK walked, out of the meeting, and that was that. And then LSU fired him, if I'm remembering this all correctly. But just an interesting scene, and you see some of the videos that LSU reporters took, at the football facility of, BK walking out and stuff, and the players leaving that meeting and stuff, which apparently only lasted like 11 minutes. I mean, just a crazy scene that I did not think was going to be happening. Like a few weeks ago when South Carolina played LSU, you knew how important this year was for the Tigers and
Sure.
that they needed to win these games. But I didn't think it'd be coming to this soon. I mean, LSU has definitely underperformed this year, and it's a massive, massive failure of a season after coming into this year with national championship expectations. Heck, that's where Brian Kelly said they were going to be this year, and it just didn't happen.
Well, as they should have been. Again, you had a lot of returning talent, including Garrett Nussmeier. You had more resources in NIL poured into your roster than had ever been before. This year was tailor-made to be the year they finally broke through. You finally got defense figured out, too. It's just the offense suffered. They're 98th in the nation coming away from the weekend in total offense. That's unacceptable on any front. We're dealing with that here at South Carolina, obviously, but especially at LSU. And again, Brian Kelly made his own bet, and, he's getting paid $53 million to walk away.
It's just a fitting end to what was an otherwise just kind of not disastrous, but just a really odd hire to begin with and odd tenure out there in Baton Rouge.
So it begs the question to me, and we'll get this on the other side, who the heck's taking all these jobs? This is the most insane coaching carousel I think we will ever see in college football. And quite frankly, I don't know who's going to get who. We'll discuss that next to wrap up the hour. It's the Gamecock Center, the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you on your Reaction Monday. Not only breaking down Carolina's 29-22 loss to Alabama. We'll get back into that in the top of the hour with Wes and Chris. The Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. But also the latest big head coach firing in college football with Brian Kelly being let go from LSU last night after an embarrassing 24-point loss to Texas A&M over the weekend in Death Valley. And if you've lost count, because again we're firing coaches at a weekly clip at this point, that makes Stanford, UCLA, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Penn State, Florida, and now LSU as all the open Power 4 jobs, with likely Florida State, Auburn, maybe Kentucky coming by the time the season ends. Jack, who's going to take all these jobs? We played the game last week of be the AD and hire somebody, but really, Lane Kiffin can't coach 5 teams. Heck, I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to go to any of them, quite frankly. You're in a tough spot if you're a big-name program firing your coach right now because you've got a lot of competition on who to hire.
And on the other side, it is the greatest job in the world to be a fired head coach because guess what? If you're Brian Kelly, you are going to be making so much money. James Franklin, all these guys with these insane buyouts. It is the greatest job to be a fired coach, especially in the SEC. But you're right. I mean, there are so many firings across college football, and it's not even Halloween yet. And there's still a whole another month of the season left to go. And there's going to be more firings. And there's going to be a trickle-down effect of coaches being pulled from other schools, whether it's at the G5 level or the Power 4. I mean, there's going to be a trickle-down effect of schools that lose their head coach, not because they got fired, but because they got taken away from a school that needs a new head coach.
So I think it goes without saying that LSU, Penn State, and Florida all look at themselves as the best job available. And Penn State got ahead of the curve by firing James Franklin before Florida and LSU became open, but they all are going to look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we're the best job. This is where people want to come. One of them is probably going to get the best candidate, but all 3 of them can't. So 1 or 2 of these schools, and again, when you add an Auburn and Florida State to that mix as top jobs in the Power 4 come in the mix, there's going to be a big-name program that's going to have to settle for somebody they probably don't really want to hire because there's so many options out there for the hot-name candidates across college football.
Yeah, there's a ton of job openings, but there's also a lot of good candidates, and I think you're right about Lane Kiffin's going to be the big fish in this whole coaching cycle. But there's part of me that thinks he's going to stay at Ole Miss. I do. I think if Ole Miss can get to the playoff this year, the big thing they got to do, they have got to lock him down to a long-term contract. They got to get him signed for years to come because LSU's going to come calling. I'm sure Florida's already come calling. Heck, I am sure Penn State, which I don't think Lane would even be a good fit at, would come calling as well. I mean, every school that has a head coach opening right now should at least give him one call just to see what his interest is. And, I mean, LSU and Florida, I think, are going to be the big fish in that pond going after him. I just don't necessarily see him leaving.
If I'm Lane Kiffin, I have got it made at Ole Miss. Now, you haven't made the playoff yet. You got a good chance to do that this year. I've got a place that's going to give me resources. I got a place that doesn't put a ton of pressure on me because they just don't have the same history of success at some of these other places. I can really stay there as long as I want. I'm going to end up probably being one of the, if not the highest paid coaches in college football because of my desirability to these other jobs. Why would I go to Florida where if in 3 years I haven't made the playoffs, they're ready to run me out of town? Why would I go to LSU where the same situation could happen? I'm going to stay at Ole Miss because I've got it made there, and I don't think he should leave.
I don't think he should either. And, I think we'll see. There's still time left in the season where if Ole Miss does miss the playoff, okay, maybe that changes things a little bit. And maybe Lane's kind of reached his ceiling in Oxford. Maybe that makes it a little bit easier for him to leave for another school. But I think if he just gets Ole Miss to the playoff and they go on a little bit of a run, because it's also harder, I think, to hire a sitting head coach who's worrying about another program right now, getting them ready for a playoff when you have recruiting coming up. Like, you got to put together a whole class and things along those lines. So I don't know which direction LSU, Florida, Penn State go. I mean, Matt Rule, I think, feels like the obvious choice for Penn State.
Is that any better than James Franklin?
No, it's not. It's not. Well, also, where's Franklin going to go? I mean, is there any chance he goes to LSU? Could he go to, could he go to Florida? I think he's going to get a job in this cycle for sure.
Yeah, at this point, unless he just wants to take some time off and go do TV, if he wants another job, he will have an opportunity to take another job. I have no doubt about that. And we can get into this more coming up tomorrow because this is just the most insane coaching carousel maybe we've ever seen in college football. And again, there's more jobs to come open probably here in the next handful of weeks as well. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs with myself, Wes, and Chris as we get back in to Carolina's 29-22 loss to Alabama on Saturday here on Your Reaction Monday on The Game. 11 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you on your Reaction Monday here. Unfortunately, having to break down another loss for South Carolina as they dropped to 3-5 on the season, this time via a 29-22 loss to the number 4 team in the land, the Alabama Crimson Tide. But this one was a lot different. And it's funny because we spent a portion of the show on Friday going back to 2022, going back to the vibes and the conversations going in to the famous game against Tennessee where you pulled off one of the greatest upsets in program history. Everybody in the nation was talking about you, all that kind of stuff. And really the way Saturday was playing out, it wasn't a blowout game like that one was, but the vibe's very similar. Carolina was in position to pull an upset against one of the best teams in the country. Unfortunately, they couldn't close. At the very end, Alabama did what Alabama does. They turned it on when they needed to and escaped Columbia going into their bye week with a much-needed victory to get themselves some rest before taking on LSU.
Yeah, a championship drive, by Bama to end it. Really good game, just a lot of back and forth, a lot of big plays on both sides. And, I think we're going to break this thing down, guys. And Tyler West and I did GC Live, our podcast this morning. And, so just a disclaimer, like nothing that we're going to talk about when we're talking about good things. We're not playing the moral victory card, right? Like You're coming here every week.
But there was a lot of good.
There was good, and which is why South Carolina was in position to win the game, which is why they were up by 8. And like you said, they didn't finish. Our job every week, we're going to try to come in, win or lose, and talk about the good if there's good, the bad, there's bad, lose, there's always more bad than good, and just try to break all those things down. But I actually thought there were 2 points. Tyler, you mentioned 2022. You're talking about the Tennessee game, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about the 2010 Bama game, if you think about last year's Bama game, I think there's some lessons there from both of those. So, and Wes, you made this point on the pod. When you have Bama on the ropes, you got to finish. You think about that 2010 game, there was a point in time where you're up, and then you feel Bama up. Are they making the run? Are they crawling back into this thing? They did. They made their run, but South Carolina was able to slam the door. They had built a cushion. They slammed the door late in the fourth quarter and got it done. Now you think about last year's Bama game, the near miss. Both sides had some plays that they would want back. Both sides made some big plays. For Carolina, you once again go down, you score, you miss a 2-point conversion that could tie it, which was interesting when you think about last year. You had a late game situation where, let the other team score. If you're Bama, you're fine with that. Last year, they should have gotten down instead of, giving South Carolina an opportunity to get the ball back, and then they go down and score. So there are actually some interesting parallels, but the lesson you can take away is when you've got Bama on the ropes, which you absolutely did, you have to finish. And there were a bunch of plays that were made on both sides in that game. South Carolina just didn't quite make enough at the end. And Bama's, drive that went down and tied it after the 2-point conversion, of course, that was kind of what they do. And that's what I think, frankly, I expected to see a little bit more of during the game. Credit South Carolina that they were defensively able to do some really good things to hold Bama in check until the end. Bama got it done at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that was a championship drive by Alabama. And I don't know how you kind of say this about a program that obviously there's roster turnover in college ball every year. It's not like the NFL where if you have maybe some core franchise guys, you can keep Tom Brady for a decade plus, and, you guys just kind of feed off of that. It's a different coaching staff than the Bama dynasty, obviously. But, man, there's just something baked in where it's not just you find a way to win against Alabama. You have to kick the door down against these guys. Like, you have to bury them when you have a chance. Otherwise, they're going to be like The Undertaker. They're going to sit up, and then it's on, man. And I think for South Carolina, like, that's just the example of where you have to get to. Like, it is close at times. There are some things where you say, man, we're in position to win this game when it mattered, when the game was on the line. And you're not talking about a Bama team that played particularly great on Saturday by any means. Like, I think both sides will watch the film and say, man, there's a lot of situations here where we let them off the hook on both sides, again. But, man, this is a championship program. If you're going to get them, you better get them when you have the chance. And, you know, I think you look at the first half when it's one of those things where you're saying, man, you're outplaying Alabama on like a down-to-down basis, but you just, couldn't stick it in the red zone. Then you have the pick six or you bobble the ball right up to them. You're going, these big plays have just killed you. Then the second half, you literally have an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter. Bama's on the ropes. And what do? They put together their most efficient drive of the entire day. That looked like the Alabama offense we've seen all year. 14 plays, 79 yards, multiple third down conversions, nearly 8 minutes, and then they cap it off. You're going, hey, you just need one stop this entire drive, right? One third down stop. Then you're even going, if you stop them on the 2-point conversion, you have a great shot to win this game. Alabama converts that as well. It was a championship DNA drive. If they make the playoff, which I think they will, it's going to be because of stuff like that. If they win the national championship, which I don't think they will, but I think they'll be in the hunt. I think there's too many holes, but if they do, it will be because of drives like that one.
Yeah, and we're going to get into all the specifics of what Carolina did well on Saturday, but you can't deny that was not Alabama at its best, which is what you were hoping for. They were coming in off of playing 4 straight ranked opponents, 2 of those on the road. They got a bye coming up next week before they wrap up their schedule with some more tough teams to come, but you got the version of Alabama you needed. Ty Simpson was not Ty Simpson on Saturday. He missed some pretty easy throws. Ryan Williams had some drops, had some issues on defense. They played the type of game you needed them to play to make this a ball game for South Carolina, and for basically 3.5 quarters, you did what you needed to do to, if not hold the lead, stay there in it. But it's right there at the end when things fell apart. And like Wes alluded to, with the Undertaker sitting up, I always like to use the term of cutting the head off the snake. Because if you don't kill them, bury them, however you want to phrase it, they're going to find a way to come back. Those Saban-era teams always had one game like this every single year. They'd play in Arkansas. They played a Mississippi State that wasn't good. And it's like, this is the number 1 team in the country. Why are they in a dogfight with a 4-4 team in late October? But it's always one of those games where they didn't play their best, but they always found a way to win, and they go on and win the national championship or whatever, and you say, wow, that's kind of a weird anomaly on the schedule. That seems to be this game for Alabama. Whatever this team ends up being, I think they're going to be a good playoff team and may make a deep run all the way to the final game on that Monday in January. This is the game people are going to look at, besides the Florida State game, of course, in week 1. But when they were rolling, saying, how did they go to South Carolina and nearly lose the game? But again, they did what they needed to, escape, still top 4 team, all their goals still ahead of them, and Carolina's left here heartbroken, unfortunately.
Well, but I think we also have to, again, this is not the moral victory thing, but if we're searching for a reason of why did Bama not play great, even though they won, why was this not their best performance? I think you credit South Carolina for that too. This is not a game where a team that's just not normally capable week to week just caught fire. Like, there was a little bit of that with South Carolina, but this wasn't a deal where they just randomly played just an A-plus game, just played like out of their minds. Bama played awful, and then you had a close result. Like, South Carolina is looking at this game like we should have won, and a lot of it is because of things that they did or didn't do in certain situations. They had a chance to go down and win the game at the end, had a fumble. They missed a field goal. They had a touchdown or a potential touchdown called back for a holding penalty that I thought wasn't very good. They had a couple penalties. They had some bust in coverage. Like, it wasn't just that, South Carolina just happened to play an amazing game, and that's what and Bama played bad, and that's what kept it close. Like, I think South Carolina earned their opportunities here. They also earned the result, the final result. It's not anything you can point to, said, the officials or this. Like, they made enough plays to be in the thing with a chance to win. They made enough plays to be winning in the fourth quarter. They didn't make enough plays to finish the game, and Bama did. Yeah, Did Ty Simpson miss some throws? Sure. So did South Carolina. They missed some throws. It was an up and down game, back and forth, turnovers. You turned over Ty Simpson for just the second time all season. He threw a pick against Vandy. He didn't just drop the ball or hand it to you with a smile. Like, you earned it.
Yeah.
You got that turnover and you earned it. They did some really good things at times from a pass rush standpoint. They did some good things in the run game. Bama punched back. Later in the game, got some big runs. Throughout the game, Ty Simpson had a bunch of plays where you're like, they needed maybe not even a quarter second more, and they get to him, and he gets rid of the ball because that's what he does. He's a really good player. He's a potential Heisman Trophy guy. So, again, just a lot of back and forth, and I do think you credit the Gamecocks for getting themselves into position, but it's incredibly frustrating, right, when you look back on it for this team, for the fan base. You go in kind of like last year. You're an underdog. It's going to take a big effort. You get that effort for most of the game. The process is good. You just don't quite get that result. And fine line, between winning and losing. This is another game where Carolina, go back to Missouri, leading going into the fourth quarter. Go to LSU. You're not leading going into the fourth quarter, but you're down one score and you have the ball multiple times in the final quarter with a chance to go tie it and make this thing a real game at the end, and they just weren't able to get it done.
Yeah, I think you said it. It's just this one felt a little bit different than those games to me just because you were playing number 4. The crowd, kudos to Gamecock Nation again. You sat through what you sat through last week. You showed up, incredible atmosphere. You're ready to celebrate, and just could not get the job done at the end. I think you look at just so many individual plays in this game where you go, if you just make one or two of those, you do win the game. But Alabama made those plays and South Carolina didn't. And, I think it was probably a situation where if you go back and watch this film, it maybe was one of the most disheartening games of the year, not because of all the bad, but because you're going, execute one more of those, execute two more of those. And yeah, I see blame on, hey, the Sellers fumble. I see blame on this or that. You can say it came down to one play, but there was probably 10 different one plays in this game. And Alabama just made a lot of those, man. I think Alabama, credit to them, they had some great calls on offensively in the key situations in the game, whether you're talking about the 3rd and 10 late where, they score the kind of field goal, let them score type situation. I'm sure we'll get into that on the other side. The 2-point conversion, Alabama converts theirs. South Carolina doesn't convert theirs. The key plays in this game, Bama made them.
We'll get into what happened at the end of that game and how things went sideways for South Carolina. Coming up next as we continue to unpack the 29-22 loss and your reaction Monday. Let us know your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, Firehouse Subs text line at 803-404-6100. More on the other side here on your Monday on the Game.
All right, everyone, let's tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes Mitchell's home, and they can come out to your home as well to make sure that you have the very best audio-visual setup out there. They can do that, yeah, mounting TVs for you, putting in wireless speakers, helping you trick out that man cave. They can source the very best equipment for you. You don't have to go to the big box stores. You don't have to get poor customer service. You just simply give them a call, 948-8327. They can figure out what it is you're trying to get done at your home. They can get you the equipment. They can come out and professionally install it. I can personally attest to it. They've done an amazing job for me and my family. They've done the same for Wes. They can do all that. If you're having trouble with your Wi-Fi signal, they can come get that corrected for you, get you the very best equipment in 2025 and beyond, security and cameras, and they can also make your home into a smart home, control everything from the touch of a button on one device. IntegratedMediaInc.com.
Quarterback draw up the middle. Sellers gets caught up. He does push forward for a couple yards on the play. And Bama says they've got the full football. Bama does have the football. They say they ripped it from Lenore Sellers' arms.
The ruling
oh,
on the field is a fumble recovered by the defense. First down, Alabama.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Reaction Monday. And unfortunately, that's where everything went sideways at the end of the game on Saturday as South Carolina all tied up 22-22, gets the ball back right around 2 minutes to go. And unfortunately, on a 2nd and 4, quarterback draw up the middle, Lenore Sellers gets the ball yanked out of his hands by Dante Lawson, the linebacker for Alabama, that obviously gave them the ball back. They were able to score pretty quickly after that. We'll get to the specifics of that come up in a second, and then Carolina really didn't have a lot to work with when they got the ball back with about 30 seconds to go in a full field to drive down, and those kind of plays there at the end resulted in the 29-22 loss for Carolina. And again, give credit to Alabama, Dante Lawson, for making a great play on the ball there. As Sellers' knee was maybe 3 inches from being on the ground and him being rolled down, and we're talking about a completely different story, but we talk about being a game of inches, and that's a perfect example of how it can happen that way.
Yeah, Sellers explained after the game, you're fighting for yards there. You think maybe the whistle's about to blow, which, I'm sitting there watching live. There's just a mass of humanity, just people, bodies everywhere. Can't really see it that well. But you see, you're just kind of expecting the whistle to blow. It doesn't. By the time it does, you got Bama claiming they got the ball. You're going, all right, he was probably down, right? But then you see the replay, and he wasn't. It could have been his knee. It could have been soon after his elbow, and Sellers explaining it after, kind of maybe anticipating a whistle, but was also trying to, put a hand down for when you're going to fall.
Yeah.
And, then he's got, it's not like he's holding it out like a loaf of bread or anything, but he's got it in one arm as opposed to having 2 hands on it. And they did make a great play and stripped it out. It was you had 4 yards to go. A lot of people are talking about the play call.
I didn't have a problem with it.
That's one of those things out of all the things in the game. Well, they ran a play up the middle. You've got the ball and the most dynamic player that you have. It's in his hands. If he just goes down and there's no fumble, we're probably not talking about that unless South Carolina's got to go punt. They got another play after. If they have to punt, maybe we're talking about that play call and the play after. I didn't have as big of a problem with it. It's just hard for Gamecock fans to think about what would have happened in that instance if you don't fumble. Do you go down? Do you score a touchdown? Do you have a chance to kick a field goal at the end of the game to win the thing?
It's important to remember the context because that was you had the first down play, which was a run to Fuller that got like a yard. You had the free play where you tried to hit Hunt down the field, didn't get it, but got 5 yards anyway. So you're 2nd and 4, about 1:50 to go. You're at the 36-yard line. You got 2 plays to get a first down. Sellers had a good night running the ball. So you try running them on power there, and it would have been like 3rd and 2. Still got about 2 of your timeouts. So you had everything to work with at that point in time. I didn't think the play call there was bad because you had your full complement of a playbook to be able to work with because you had time and timeouts on your side.
And, guys, I think it's kind of your classic situation now where because people are so just kind of focused on the fact that, Shula and the offense this year overall has not been good enough, they hyper-focus on, this is the person we blame. This is the person to blame when something goes wrong. In this case, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that play call. You are trying – I saw some people say, well, they were playing for overtime. They were not playing for overtime. What you're trying to do, you're trying to ease into that first down because, yes, you were trying to go score, but you don't want to throw the ball 3 times, punt the ball back to Alabama. They have timeouts, and now they have all the time in the world as well. You're kind of trying to – and the reason you run on first down – get it to the 2-minute timeout, you're trying to get into the flow of this drive by getting that first down, and then you put the pedal down essentially at that point. And so, any play that gets 16 the ball, we saw the quarterback draw hit earlier in the game as well. They have been, for a lot of this season, I feel like very hesitant to run him in the middle of the field. Like as much as people talk about they run the ball in the middle of the field too much, most of that has been with the running backs. And so, he's shown he can pop that thing out. All it takes is, a missed tackle, and he's out of that fray, and who knows what happens. So no problem at all with the call. I hate it for Sellers, man, because that's going to be the play everyone remembers. And it was such a weird play the way it played out because it was almost nonchalant. Like everybody around the play kind of thought he was down. And then you have like 1 or 2 even the Alabama guy who recovered the ball, I don't even know if he realized he recovered it at first. And then you have the one Alabama guy pointing like our ball, and you're going, surely not. But you can't, honestly, guys, you can't really hope or anticipate a quick whistle there because we've seen Sellers break out of tackles his entire career. So you really don't want a quick whistle because we've seen him make plays where it looks like it's dead, and then next thing you know, he has even more yardage. So it was just a freak thing, I feel like. No problem with the play call at all. It happened, and to Chris's point, what would have happened if you don't fumble there? We saw Sellers drive the team down against Clemson last year. We saw Sellers drive the team down against Missouri late in the game twice last year. We saw Sellers drive the team down with the game on the line against Illinois in the bowl game, and it of course stalled out. Illinois got a stop. But we have seen him in these exact scenarios basically do everything you need to do in that 2-minute situation. So, unfortunately, did not happen this time.
That situation obviously led to what happened on the following Alabama drive with them scoring the touchdown, the controversy around that of how they scored that touchdown. We'll get into what Coach Beamer had to say about that as we continue to break down South Carolina's 29-22 loss to Alabama on Your Reaction Monday here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on the Game.
All right, let's tell you all about Game Day Men's Health. If you're a guy out there and you've got some symptoms going on that maybe aren't right, if you found yourself tired, if you're not sleeping well, if your energy levels are low, just not feeling like yourself, reach out to our friends over at Game Day Men's Health and see if they can help you. They help men like you reclaim your vitality by making sure that your hormone levels are optimized. And they're going to see if you're a candidate when you go into their clinic, which has in-house labs conveniently located in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. They're different than other places because they have in-house labs. You don't have to go outside anywhere else. You can get your results in their in-house labs in 15 minutes or less. Get yourself a personalized consultation to see if you're a candidate for treatment, and a flexible plan with no long-term contracts if you need treatment. TVs and refreshments in the Man Cave style clinic over at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com for more information.
if he got the first down. Same scenario as last year. Like if you look back at the game last year, they really shouldn't have scored the touchdown. If you remember that play, they scored on 4th down. We busted the coverage. Like the only reason that we had a drive to throw to Nick and a onside kick was because they scored and gave us the ball back. So what we said, I wanted them to kick us. Well, I used my timeouts. I wanted them to kick a 40-something yard field goal. But we said if they get the first down, we need to let them score because otherwise they're just going to run the clock down and basically kick an extra point to win the game.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on your Reaction Monday. And that was Coach Beamer after the game talking about the most controversial moment of the entire game coming there in the final minute when South Carolina, still tied at 22 with Alabama, did allow Jeremy Bernard to get into the end zone on that 3rd and 10 play. And again, this has gotten attention not just here locally in Columbia, but also nationally with some national college football media people weighing in on it. But essentially, Jeremy Bernard, once he breaks 3 because he takes the snap in the Wildcat, skirts to the right side, gets past the first down marker. Carolina has no more timeouts at this point in time. DQ Smith could have tackled him at about the 10-yard line, roughly. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was in bounds, maybe it would have been out of bounds. Regardless, Alabama would have had the opportunity to run the clock all the way down to nothing. They had 2 timeouts to work with, set their kicker up for essentially a short, if not an extra point field goal, a few yards past that, and win the game on a walk-off. Instead, Carolina chose to allow them to score, to give the ball back to their offense and Lenore Sellers with what they were hoping was going to be about 34, 33-ish seconds. A few seconds burned off because Harbor had the fumble on the punt return, or on the kickoff return. They got the ball out to the 9. But the thinking was we want to give the ball back to our offense with a chance to score as opposed to having to hope to block a very short and very makeable field goal at the last second.
When that play, when the ball was snapped, you had 42 seconds, and Alabama had 2 timeouts, 3 timeouts?
2 timeouts.
2 timeouts. So, in that instance, obviously you want the stop. Their kicker is good when it's close, but when you get past the 40-yard mark, it becomes less than a crapshoot. He's actually been not very good there. So your hope is obviously to get a stop there and force that field goal, or even if they gain a few yards, probably not. But if you get a first down, now you're faced, if you give up a first down, if you're South Carolina, you're faced with 2 very bad options, right? You're faced with a close field goal that's basically, close to a chip shot. Or you're faced with let them score, and then you have about 34 seconds with no timeouts to drive the field. Now, if you really want to dive deep into this thing, I'm of the camp where I think you can argue either way. You might say, should never let them score. Should never guarantee the opponent points. They still have to kick the field goal, even if it's close. Maybe the snap's bad. Maybe, maybe you block it. Maybe he doinks it off the upright. I get that. What is clear is if they do kick that field goal, then there's going to be no time on the clock. So you've got no more plays. It's down to 1 play. On the other side, if you let them score, now you're in a situation where, of course, you have to go down the field, and you have to probably go 75 yards, 34 seconds, and you've got no timeouts, and you have to score a touchdown. Also not a great option. Now, one of the things I think to consider there, Bama does have to kick it off to you. So that could be good or bad. You're probably not fair catching that kick. They didn't, indeed. Bama threw a junk kick at South Carolina, which is becoming more and more common. And Nick Harbor wasn't able to field it cleanly, and now they got to go even farther. The flip side of that is you're kind of banking on, okay, could we break a return? Even if it's not a touchdown, can you break a 40-yard return and give yourself an opportunity to take a few shots in the end zone? You're also extending it out to multiple plays, as opposed to leaving it up to the other team is going to have 1 play to win the game or go to overtime. You're extending it into, okay, now we definitely have to score to match them, but we've got a kickoff and we've got maybe a few other plays in there. And of course, what ended up happening was the worst case scenario after you made that decision, because South Carolina doesn't field the kick cleanly, they're backed way up, they've still got no timeouts, now they got to drive even further, and they don't get any semblance of a good playoff in the 2 plays that they ran. So, obviously it didn't work out, but you can probably make an argument, right, for either situation there. Neither option was great in that scenario.
Yeah, you're deciding between 2 terrible options, and I think and Tyler, you did this, but I think important to acknowledge, important to just kind of reiterate, they were not letting them score just period in a vacuum. That was a thought I saw. Like, how are you going to let them score instead of it would, if you get a stop, which is what they actually wanted to do, stop for no gain, you're talking about a 42-yard field goal, which is kind of right on the cusp of where his accuracy goes down. According to the broadcast, he's 10 for 10, 40 and in, and then like 2 for 6, 41 and out. That's probably a coin flip for you if you can force him to kick that in that situation, in that atmosphere, with that pressure. But unfortunately, it is I think, credit where it's due, a great call from Alabama. They introduced some misdirection. They get a great look for Bernard. And then now you're at the point of, all right, do you push him out of bounds or do you let him score? And to your point, Tyler, you're talking, I think in the best case scenario, you shove him out at the 11. If they don't gain another yard, which, important to remember, they've got 2 timeouts, they're going to keep running the ball. They're going to get it to the middle of the field, probably going to center it up and then kick it with no time to go. You're talking about a 28-yard field goal, which probably is not going to be missed. You're probably going to have to block it. So percentage-wise, in a general sense, I do sort of hate the thought of letting a team score. Unless that team is up by 1, which is the scenario we saw last year. South Carolina let Bama score after Bama converted, and Bama absolutely should have laid down. The game is over. Y'all remember the scenario last year.
Yeah.
This case, they still have to kick it. The reason why I think you can make the case for letting them score is I'm always wondering, what does the other team not want you to do? Like, if I'm Alabama, am I telling Bernard to go down at the 1? In college ball, it's maybe a discussion. In the NFL, as accurate as the kickers are, I 1,000% want my guy to go down at the 1, right?
Yep.
I want him to just slide down. And then you're kicking an extra point for the win. The other factor there, too, about why you maybe don't score if you're Bama, it's not a situation where if you miss the kick, you lose the game. It's a situation where you hit the kick to win. Your worst case, unless this thing gets blocked and run back 90 yards, your worst case is you're going to OT. So if you're Carolina, man, you're just in a bad way right there. It's a bad spot to be in. And also you're not expecting for the drive to start at like the 10-yard line either. You really, in a lot of cases, the team will give up some yardage there just to keep you from being able to return it well. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times you'll get that ball at the 30, 32, and now are you still looking at a long shot? Of course, but blocking a 28-yard field goal is an incredibly long shot as well. You're danged if you do, danged if you don't at that point.
Yeah, it's one of those situations, as y'all mentioned, if they do kick a field goal, it's at the last second. You have no opportunity to possess the ball again outside of blocking and trying to run it back all the way. We talk so much about what Lenore Sellers means to this team and this offense, and he had his best all-around game of the season on Saturday, and if we don't get into the specifics of that today, we'll get into it tomorrow. But, I am never going to be mad about trying to put the ball back in the hands of your best player, trying to give him the opportunity to go down there and score another touchdown. Yes, long shot. And again, you alluded to, it's going to be a whole lot harder going 91 yards as opposed to 71 or 75 yards with no timeouts, but you still gave Sellers the opportunity to go on another one of those drives we've seen him do before. It just didn't end up working out. I will say I didn't love the call to throw the ball short of the sticks with Brady Hunt, which ended up running off about 10 seconds as opposed to if you were able to be on the sticks and get a first down there, you could have clocked it and saved a little bit of time. But that's kind of the only play calling issue that I had problems with on Saturday. But I'm not going to be mad about putting the ball back in the hands of your best players, trying to give them the opportunity to win with, again, 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, two bad options. And I think on that last, like the second to last play, because obviously both of those are bad. Can't take a sack at the end of the game. You can't throw that ball short. It's obviously not the design of the play to, hey, flick the ball out there to Brady Hunt. If your argument is that route should not even be anywhere in the concept, so it's not even an option, like I'm with you on that for sure. Because
it was the same thing that happened last week against Oklahoma before the half.
Right. Like if you want to have that option as a short route where it's catch it, go get 8 yards and get out of bounds, okay, but that wasn't even on the table, with how it. So, whether it's the play or the decision to actually throw it when he's covered, I'm with you on that. But again, two bad options. You can argue in both ways. For South Carolina, it's probably more of, hey, if they kick this field goal and they make it, the game is 100% over. If they score, we got to go score and match them, but at least we have the opportunity to match.
Sure.
And we've got maybe a few different plays, whether it's a kickoff or a few plays from scrimmage after you get the ball back to go match him. Whereas if a field goal's kicked, you have no opportunity to match him.
Yep.
And if you got to bank on him missing it to go to overtime on a short field goal. So tough situation.
We'll get to some of your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as we wrap up the hour. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs and your reaction Monday here on The Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the game. There's a whole lot more to unpack from this game that we'll certainly get into as we get into the show tomorrow. Ray hit us up on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines and wanted to make mention of the pass rush in this game, making Ty Simpson uncomfortable. And I think we can expand that out to the entire defense because phenomenal performance. They've played well the entire year. We talk about them keeping Carolina in games, but so many guys on Saturday played with their hair on fire. You talk about Nick Barrett and Monkel Goodwine just dominating there in the middle. Nick Barrett living in Alabama's backfield, it felt like, for most of the game. Great plays on the edge. Brian Thomas Jr., Dylan Stewart, creating pressure, getting sacks. Vakari Swain maybe had his best game as a Gamecock with a couple of key stops there. Jalen Kilgore preventing what would have been a would-be touchdown with a very athletic pass deflection late in the game. Like, tons of guys on this defense made statements on Saturday, and that helped Carolina be in the position to win. Unfortunately, they came up short.
Yeah, I mean, the second to last drive for Bama where they tie the game and get the two-pointer, tough drive defensively. Of course, 14 plays, 79 yards, some key, runs, a couple key third down conversions early in the drive. Not the best drive, right? But the defense did enough to get you in position throughout this game. For a Bama offense that's been one of the hottest in the country.
And 7 of those points weren't theirs. That was on the pick 6.
Exactly.
So they held them to effectively 15 points.
I mean, take that.
I guess, 22 points.
The end of the game, you're right.
Yeah.
But, during the most competitive portion of the game, right?
Sure.
Like, that's what they did. And, Ty Simpson, did he miss some throws? Sure. But he also pushed the ball downfield. Vakari Swain, they tried to pick on him. He was game, down the field, was excellent, did a great job returning punts. I thought during the game on the bounce, like his ability to do that's outstanding. He had the great call on the blitz, well executed, turned Ty Simpson over for just, as we said, the second time all season. And, did Ty Simpson and that Bama offense get some wins where you were a quarter second, a half second away from getting to him? Sure. But they had some big run stops, tackles for loss. BT, was really, really good. I thought, guys, I mean, how about this? The defensive tackles, one of the biggest question marks on the team, maybe the biggest question mark going into the season. Then you lose your defensive line coach, and fortunately he's fine, and he'll be back at some point, hopefully soon. Jordan Dove has stepped in, done a great job. Monkel Goodwine, Nick Barrett. I mean, those guys were outstanding on Saturday and have definitely taken a step forward this year. So you saw a lot of good, they gave up that drive at the end, but if you take the whole performance, South Carolina played better than just about anybody on this schedule that Bama's faced this year, and they've been hot, so it was a heck of a performance.
Well, I think we knew coming in, at least on paper, this is the best offense that you will have faced to this point, and certainly was the best passing game, the best receiving core. We talked about it. They've got a tight end. We saw that. A tight end who'll make some plays for you. Running backs are good in the passing game as well. This was your toughest test yet. And, even I think we forget Bama got pushed to the brink in the first half and went for it on fourth down at the goal line and ended up getting it. But you got a third down stop down there as well. And so the final touchdown, I don't know, maybe you put a little asterisk on that one too, because you really wanted a true stop. You wanted to force the field goal, but just was a bad spot to be put in terms of where Alabama took over with the football. So I think, man, you can get nitpicky on this defense, of course, and pick out things. I'm sure there's things in film review, some plays they'll want back, some potential interceptions that they'll want back for sure. Considering the matchup, though, I think you got to just like a lot of what you saw in this game. And, boys, Vakari Swain, I don't know if the NFL guys have gotten on that train yet, but just wait. He's going to be the riser from this team right now in terms of guys that there was not really NFL talk preseason on a national level, but you look at what he does in the punt return game. You look at just the attitude he brings to the field. Like, he's got a little bit of that just kind of swagger to him, and he ain't scared, which I think is a huge part of playing corner. But just you look at the way he moves athletically, once the NFL teams really start to dial in on him, he's going to be a big riser, I think, in how these teams project him.
Well, there was no better game to do that than on Saturday, because I can attest that I believe all 32 teams were there. If not all 32, it was pretty darn close. That press box was loaded with NFL scouts. Brandon Beane, the GM for the Bills, was sitting right in front of me watching Vakari Swin and everybody else go out there and play. So if you wanted to make a statement, that was the game to do it in.
Well, you did it against an NFL quarterback, an NFL receiving core. You know, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, those guys, there's depth there. And he kind of got to showcase, that's a great point, Wes, like he got to showcase everything that the NFL teams will want to see. Can you cover man-to-man downfield? Yes. Do you have ball skills? Watch him return punts. Can you return punts? We all know special teams, that's a ticket to stay around the NFL for a long time. Do you have size and speed? Yes. Can you blitz? Well, we saw the cat blitz they ran, came off the edge, avoided the blocker, turned Ty Simpson over with a fumble, finished the play. Like, he kind of showed in spots all the different things that he can do. So he's been really, really good this year. I thought it was his best game. He played more snaps, I think, maybe than they originally thought on defense. Miles Norwood played early in the game, but only ended up playing like 6 to 8 snaps. Vakari seemed to take his snaps as the game went on and was really impactful. So he was certainly one of the bright spots.
Yeah, again, a lot more to unpack from this game. Again, it's a heartbreaking loss, and Carolina now faces an even tougher uphill battle as you go on the road to 2 more top 10 teams in Ole Miss and A&M over the next couple weeks, trying to find at least one of those wins to get yourself in a situation where you can end up making a bowl game, which obviously is going to be very difficult at this point in time, but a better effort on Saturday against number 4 Alabama. We'll continue to unpack this as the day rolls along. This has been the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself and Bill Gunner. Up next on your Reaction Monday here on the game.